Okay, day 11 in quarantine. It's getting towards the end of the day. It's dusk here in Sydney. Also got a nice view of London there. It's Saturday today. I'm not gonna lie, I'm being a little bit bored today. But I'm not really complaining about that. How often as adults do we get the opportunity to be bored? So it's actually quite good. I've been playing the ukulele for a little bit. Painted my nails, just because why not? Watched a bit of TV and some films. Haven't got any calls today. It's 5 p.m. and no one's called me today, which is unusual. I've usually heard from Mama and Tessa at least, but that's okay. I'm sure I will speak to them at some stage this evening. But I've had some messages from my friend Emily, which is good. There's not much to report today. It's interesting. I think when I was in London, I was putting so much focus on what I was going to do about my job and how I was going to get back to Australia and basically getting myself out of my job and onto that flight it just took so much focus and energy. And Mo and I had the motto of just one step at a time. Don't try and fix everything at once. Just had to do one step at a time. So, quit my job. I said goodbye to Mo, which was the hardest thing of all of this. Packed up my bag, went to the airport, got on the flight, did the flight with all of the masks and having my temperature checked and all of that sort of stress. Came into quarantine, not knowing where I was going to end up, how this was going to be. So did all of that, but now I'm on day 11, which means I've got a couple of days left and then I'm on to the next step. And I haven't really put a lot of thought into what that's going to look like. I'm here for at least a few months. I have a return flight booked for September back to London, but the restrictions here in Sydney and in Australia are getting more and more full on. So like this week they have nearly halved the number of citizens that they will allow into the country per week. It was 7,000 before, now it's 4,000. So that means like about 50% of the flights coming into Australia are going to be cancelled. So it's going to be a lot harder for Australian citizens who are living abroad to actually get into Australia in the first place. They're also going to start asking people, they're going to start making people pay for their hotel quarantine, which is an expense that lots of people can't actually afford, or will really struggle to do that. So I'm incredibly fortunate that I've managed to secure 2 weeks at the Amora Hotel on Jamieson Street in Sydney. It's, for all it's worth, it's been a really good space for me to be in, and no complaints. So, but the idea of me having to pay for this I know I would have been able to get support to help me pay for that, but it would have added another stress. So the idea of these Australian citizens who are abroad right now, with this stress of not knowing how they get a flight, are the flight's going to be a first come first serve, or is it going to be the person that can afford to pay for a business ticket, business class? So it's going to put a lot of stress on Australians coming home. So this idea that I have a return flight back to London in September stresses me out, because I don't know if I'm willing to leave Australia without an easy way for me to come back. But that is something that I don't need to answer now. But yeah, my timing has just been impeccable. I'm so glad that I'm here, and only a few more days before, fingers crossed, they release me and I'm allowed to leave this hotel. But yeah, and then the question is what happens next. I'm not really in a rush. I don't have to figure it out immediately. The whole point of me coming back was to actually take a break, have a rest, recover a little bit from my stress and my anxieties, give my hair the opportunity to grow back. I'm not sure if I've explained, but one of the reasons why I got so stressed was I realised my hair was falling out, alopecia areata, which probably was from the stress in the first place, but I'm telling you now, when you've got thick hair and all of a sudden you realise a bald spot about that big on the back of your head, like completely bald, that puts a whole new level of stress on you. So the idea is to come back, have some time to recover, de-stress, and then come up with a plan. But yeah, it's just a bit strange, this idea of leaving this hotel, and I mean, my plan is to go home, spend time with my family. I'm really hoping that everything doesn't get locked down again here, because the coronavirus has sort of, the infection rate's gone way up in Victoria, and so Victoria is basically in lockdown again. Melbourne's in lockdown, and they've closed the border between Victoria and New South Wales for the first time in a century. The last time was the Spanish influenza. So, but I've already read of a couple of cases in southwest Sydney, I think. So there's this sort of imminent threat that coronavirus is going to rear its ugly head again, and we may have to go into lockdown here in New South Wales as well. I mean, as long as I get home to the farm with the family, and by farm I mean the urban farm, it's obviously in the suburbs, it's just, but it does have a good outdoor space. As long as I can get there, I'd rather be locked down there than, you know, I've now got this fear of what happens if I got stuck in this hotel for longer. So yeah, one step at a time. It's just this whole global pandemic. I know the stress it causes me, and I'm in a really fortunate position. You know, I've had stressful times, and obviously having my relationship split across the two sides of the globe isn't ideal by any means, but other than that, I am very, very fortunate. And there's a lot more people who are having a much harder time than I am. And the stress and anxiety that this pandemic brings onto people is, yeah, it's worrying, and I don't think we're even close to that going away. I think there's a lot more to come. But enough of that misery. I look at my positives. I've had a really nice time in this lockdown. It's actually, the fact I'm bored today is totally fine. And a couple more days and I will be with my family. And that is what this whole thing was about, was for me to be able to go home. And so I'm nearly there. End of day 11.